We're here on Cowley Road again, in a place I've been once before, and when they put up a monstrosity of a mural on some hastily assembled wood. And obviously that was terribly made and terribly constructed in terms of the paintwork, so it was all falling apart. And we've got a new one which says thank you. It's got big flowers, it's a little bit more pleasant to look at. And thankfully most people won't be reading the writing on it because they'll be going past in cars and buses, or maybe just walking too fast to take it in because it's quite small. But the writing says, for the sunflowers on Percy Street. Sunflowers have been growing for a long time without any help from anyone, and the tomato plants left on doorsteps. For the solace of birdsong. You can't thank people for birdsong. Birdsong was taking care of itself, and the stars as well, and seeing stars. A long time before anyone started to interfere with locking down the country, we had birdsong and seeing stars. For the delivery of sweet peas and homemade jam. These are kind things. For the neighbourhood that now talks. I think you'll find that the neighbourhood actually always did talk. That's how we conducted our communications for a long time. For the slowing down and taking stock. For the slowing down and going bust. For your care. Carers, don't forget to look after yourselves well. If you consider it care to lock old people in their homes and deny them the love and companionship of their family and friends, then you might thank carers for that. But if you consider locking the doors to your care home and introducing into those care homes people who are already sick and spreading COVID around, so that nearly half the deaths in this country from COVID are accounted for by deaths in care homes, then you would call that care, but it's not care. For the teddy bear display in the windows entertaining kids on daily walks, I'm sure they would be much more entertained if they weren't locked in the house 23 hours a day or whatever they were doing to them, and wearing masks and forcing them into like hypoxic situations. For small mercies, all that is left to us. For our street transforming into a community. No, it didn't. If you look around now, it's quiet. It's quiet and there's nobody about, and people are dancing out the way of one another. They're not even allowed to gather in twos and threes. This is not a community. Community is when people come commune. For the kind words of encouragement when we closed and the support when we reopened. We've been through this. You wouldn't have to reopen if you never closed. You wouldn't need the encouragement because you'd have money and you'd have your own self-respect for running your own business without depending on the state or the support of people, because you were just going about your business like a free being. For masking up and protecting your community. Masks for the final time do not protect anyone. If you've not looked into the risks of wearing masks, if you're putting children in them, if you're putting old people in them, if you're putting cyclists in them, you have no idea what masks do. There is no evidence over decades of randomized controlled trials that they work to prevent the spread of respiratory diseases, and actually they do more harm than good when they're worn in the community. Thank you to the residents who helped our grieving neighbour. Maybe that neighbour would not have had to grieve if the NHS hadn't, or the health service had not been shut to people who needed this care because it became into the COVID service. To the nurse Nikki, who has been extraordinary on the COVID ward. I'm going to let Nikki get away with that, and let's hope she has been extraordinary. To my digital community, once again, I would much prefer a real community than a digital and this fake intimacy of people in little squares like they're, I don't know, like they're on one of those stupid game shows from the 1980s. To Angie and Catherine for their relentless work in urgent care. Fair enough to Angie and Catherine. To the thorough and professional and kind paramedics when I had the virus. Did you have the virus, or did you test positive in a flawed test that gives out nearly 90% false positives? To the postmen and women, the bus drivers and bin collectors, all of whom carried on working and still work. I saw them today, wandering about doing their business without shutting down, like we all could have done. To bottle mask close allotments for making it safe to dig water and chat at a distance. Nobody wants that distance stuff. Nothing social about it. To Sheila Tree for making hundreds of masks and raising money for... Sheila, you want to take a good long look at yourself if you're making hundreds of masks for the community. Those things are dangerous. If they're fluffy masks, homemade things, they'll be breathing in particles of the material that you make them out of and infecting their lungs if they're reusing them, not handling them properly. Basically, you're an accessory to the crimes against humanity that are taking place in this country and around the world. You need to take a really good long look at yourself. I don't know if Sheila Tree is a person or an organisation, but seriously, take stock. For the Florence Park Community Centre. To the students who gave my parents flowers, that's kind. To the community supporting the Indies of Oxford. To the nurse who held my dad's hand. To all mutual aid volunteers. well, I suppose there is kindness in there, and they can have the flowers. But the rest of you, wake up. Wake the hell up.